happy with that. He used to try to give her instructions as she beat him by 10 or 20 strokes. So, anyways, I wrote just some brainstorming stuff down to share some stories and things I learned from my dad. His wife had died, my mother, his first wife. His garage is burnt down. In the deepest and darkest of times, he had huge medical bills to pay for my mother's illness. And I asked him, and I don't remember my age, maybe 13, I asked him, who would you rather be? And he said, I don't want to be anyone else because I wouldn't have you kids. And that's something I always carried with me. I was involved with baseball mostly as a youth, and my dad coached every game, every team I was on. And when I went to high school, he showed up for every game. He would show up in his greasy clothes just in time to see us play. And so I always did that too. I never started to work really hard until my kids didn't want me around anymore. And that was a lesson I learned, to be there for your kids. Remember, shortly after my mother died, the 3 kids and me lying in his bed and him crying and saying, I miss your mommy. Be vulnerable to your kids. It was a really important lesson. He was willing to do that. My mother had been known to pull the belt out now and then, and as kids we probably deserved it, and back then that was expected punishment. And so she'd pull it out, threaten it with us, and say, wait till your father gets home. But my dad never got mad, and he wasn't angry when we got home, so I learned that from him as, be steady, predictable. Your kids, as soon as my mother said, wait till your dad gets home, we all breathed a sigh of relief and said, oh, thank God. We avoided the belt this time.
Dad fake spanked us.
What's that?
My dad fake spanked us. He would hit his hand and he'd be like, scream, scream.
So yeah, I do practice what I learned from my dad. His punishments were reasonable, I think. He never overreacted. I was in 2nd grade, and in 2nd grade I watched somebody stand up in class and another student pulled a chair out and that person sat back down and fell to the ground. For some reason in 2nd grade I thought that'd be really funny to do to my dad. And so it was breakfast, he was in just boxer shorts, he had a cigarette in his hand and he reached out, at that point he smoked, he reached up, get a cup of coffee, I pulled a chair out and he fell to the ground, sat on the ground and said, Jesus Christ, Jack, what the hell are you doing? That was the extent of that. Lesson learned. Well, in our family, there are passing gas and there's flatulence, and then there are special farts that deserve the title of when I was like 12 years old. My dad and I are driving home from hunting camp, and I'm asleep, and he's driving the truck, and I would wake up now and then to him saying, Jesus Christ, Jack, it's like 0 degrees out, the windows are dry, he's driving 55 miles an hour because I'm farting. It's freezing, and every time I did, he goes, Jesus Christ, Jack. So in our family, it's an especially good one, it gets that label. To this day.
Most of those came from you.
They're all for me. Yeah, they're all for me. Another thing I learned from him is, a friend of mine was over for, hanging out. We're watching TV, and my dad sat down, and I said, you watch, he'll be asleep in 10 seconds. And literally sat down, and he says, oh, he's kidding. I says, no, this is my dad. And as you look back, he had those huge medical bills to pay, support us, and all that. He really worked hard, and so I learned the importance of that. And I learned a lesson of being tough. And this guy has a gift that I'm a retired orthopedic surgeon, and so I have dealt a lot with pain, and patient's pain, and patient's expression of pain. And if someone comes in and said, I have a high pain threshold, that means that they may, but they're usually aware of their pain, and they tough it out. But my dad broke his kneecap and was in a long leg cast, and he was back to work in 3 days. It was his right leg, so he hung it out on the car seat and drove with his left foot to work as an auto mechanic after 3 days. He called me years later and said, I have some back pain. We lived in central Pennsylvania, he lived in Pittsburgh, and I tried to recommend some treatment from a distance, and he wasn't getting better, so I said, well, come out this way, we'll work you up. And so he arrives, and I say, hey, you can sleep in Brian's, my son's bedroom, he's at college. And so I go to our bedroom, I heard thump, and I go running out. His legs looked like he was from a concentration camp. They had shrunk down in size from pressure on the nerves in his legs. And he threw his bag to the top of the steps so he could use both of his arms to climb the steps. Phenomenal toughness. And so I aspire to that. I'm in no way, shape, or form nearly that tough, but I do aspire to it. Part of his toughness, so another lesson I learned, and it helped me because, as a physician, is that he and I were playing catch, which we did a lot when I was young. And he was throwing me pop-ups, so I threw him one back, and he was running for it, and it hit a tree branch, and that hit him right here on the forehead. And he goes down, and I run over, and I see the baseball stitches on his forehead imprinted, and I start to laugh. And I was done laughing after he was discharged from the hospital 3 days later with a concussion. But I did learn to not laugh at others' injuries if you could help it. Learned a little bit of competitiveness from him. If Nicholas is here, you might remember we were at the beach, big family gathering, and we played a tournament on the Wii game of bowling. And we had single elimination, made it down to my dad and an 8-year-old Nicholas. And my dad was trash-talking that 8-year-old in order to win, using every mechanism in every way he could. And so we did learn a little bit of competitiveness from him. Then, two more things. Hopped in his truck once, years and years ago, and I thank him for introducing me to rap music. He had a bunch of cassette tapes, and looked like they're all country, but turned the car on, and let me see, I think I can generate the song that was on that surprised the heck out of me.
I'll probably know it.
Oh, that's not it. And it's not coming across on the speaker anymore.
Oh no!
Coolio's Gangster's Paradise was on my dad's cassette player. And I'm like, do you like rap music? And he goes, yeah, I like the beat. And so that I have been a fan of rap music ever since. He did introduce that to me. And the final thing I want to say, well, putting that all together, I learned that the most important lesson I learned, to summarize it all, is always do the right thing. My dad always did the right thing, and that's not complicated. You can fib about stuff, you can lie about stuff, you can do stuff, and if you get away with it, it's okay. That seems to be our overriding cultural phenomenon right now. But my dad taught me always do the right thing, and if I ever gave advice, that's it. But in summary, Donna?
Yeah?
What you have done for our father is phenomenal. The care you gave him for 49 years. And what you did is he transitioned to, you had to feel like you lost your mate, the way he got confused at the end, but you never compromised in your care of him. Even things that were silly, like, making sure he got his cholesterol pills in the last year, like who cares what his cholesterol is when you're almost 90, and when he would come out and some of it's humorous, and you made a great adaptation of it. Instead of trying to correct him and fix him and make him right, you just went along with stuff. Like when he came out with his shoes on the wrong feet and pants on backwards, she says, honey, you pants on backwards. He says, the problem is you make me wear these goddamn women's clothes that don't have zippers. So, with all that.
And plaids and stripes together, remember? Yeah.
But you are not my blood mother, but you are our mother and our grandmother, and you have earned that for an effort that was superhuman with dedication day to day. So anyone else with more organized comments?